promise was an exclusive dining experience, a secret until the last minute. When the details were revealed, the Diner and Noir website promised diners would be blown away. But instead, would-be diners tell Caitlin Ross they were left hungry when the event was postponed just 24 hours before it was supposed to begin. So Caitlin, people were so confused here. The news left a lot of people very, very concerned.
Confused and frustrated. The ad was all over Facebook, a secret dinner party that promised mingling with social media influencers and business leaders across Atlanta. More than 1,000 people liked the Facebook page and said they would attend the event. But then, just hours before the location of the secret dinner party was set to be revealed, the event organizers postponed it. While the email said the event would be rescheduled, it never gave a specific date. And people in Chicago and Baltimore wrote online events in their cities were postponed too. Tanisha Landry is an event planner herself and bought tickets with a group of friends. She says she's emailed and tried to call organizers to see when it would be rescheduled. She's heard nothing back.
I think it was just really disheartening, and it's just a little frustrating because, hey, money's tied up, you don't know when it's going to happen, and you really don't know what happened to the event.
She's even more frustrated because the email claims if people complain or post negatively about the event online, they could be held liable. They have a whole section warning people against negative reviews online. I tried to reach the people who put this together on Facebook, through email, over the phone. I couldn't get an answer either. The cheap seats to this event were $100. The more expensive tickets, more than $300. So people are out a lot of money. At 6, we're talking about what you can do if you want to buy tickets for something like this.